consecrating ourselves afresh to the wondrous purposes of God, the Indian Council pledges its attention to every holy endeavor envisioned by the Darjeeling Council. And in this mighty show of cosmic unity, which has so high and benign a purpose, I am commended by the God flame within my being to touch the life of this planet with the sacred purposes once again, that men may turn from their diversions and consecrate themselves to the holy services which are ahead for the perfection of the earth. With the rising of the sandalwood essences, the soul of one departed from the land of India was elevated and cut free from human creation. He abides at a certain place, awaiting rebirth in a more noble destiny. For although consecrated to political ideals and service to this great land, he did not wholly complete the services of setting his own soul forever free in the ritual of the Ascension. We have welcomed him, we have received him, we have given him of the unguent of our comfort, and his soul is at rest in the mighty stream of God, the holy energy whose soundless sound is heard throughout the very far-reaching echoes of the caverns of eternity. I am come this day to pledge anew to our beloved Moria the full endeavors of the Council, known as the Indian Council, to the Darjeeling Council, to the services of light, and to the mighty waves of protection required for the perfectionment of our endeavors upon earth. I am certain that as you meditate upon it, you will realize, precious ones, that all divine endeavors upon earth focused in mankind and in various life streams require protection because of the weight of mankind's discord and the oppositional forces which would, if they could, overthrow cosmic purpose. Mankind today, embroiled in the vortices of human turmoil, have a constant attempt being made to drag them down into a whirlpool of negation. And it is ever so essential that unascended mankind should then hold the hand of their divinity in the full awareness and realization that this is the source of their hope. I ask you now, O gracious ones, have you not suffered the despondencies of human hopes and watched as one individual after another on whom you pinned your hope did go down before your eyes into some form of human state of negation? Well, then, I ask you, did your divine presence ever fall from its high state of grace I am sure you will affirm that your divine presence has never fallen, but has descended only in a stream of energy which came forth into your being for the holy purposes of redemption. Now, gracious ones, mankind do not seem willing to halt the senseless struggle which occurs between the materialistic senses and the spiritual powers of their life. They seem content to enter in to the fullness of the consciousness of humanity and the foibles of humanity without being willing to consummate their divine union here and now. It is as though they would seek in the very doctrine of re-embodiment a reinforcement of their earthly and mundane pleasures. It is as though they would prefer to defer their own ascension in the light and abide upon this planetary body amongst its shadows, not for the sole purpose of glorifying God, although they declare that this be so, but for the purposes of further satiation of their own human ego and its ceaselessly seeming round of pleasures midst palaces, while far from the land that is home. I come then to remind you of the mighty message which was given here earlier this year, how that the Spirit of God should not always strive with flesh. And I remind you that when the voice from on high, speaking in the name of the great karmic board, speaketh to a life stream and declareth no further, there is no power in heaven nor earth that can alter this decree. And those individuals who enter into the vibratory action of human sense consciousness when they have an opportunity and a might of cosmic understanding to enter into the higher reaches of God's light, and then spurn the action of their own divine self, preferring the world and its honor to cosmic honor, I think they can but expect that which the great law brings to their feet. Now I do not speak this day to condemn any, but to warn all. My warning is for the freedom of your soul. For unless you shall find your freedom now, while you live, I think you do not fully realize just exactly what can happen. Individuals today must recognize that their presence has all eternity, and therefore there is no limit insofar as man's free will goes to just how long he shall continue a round of occupying materialistic dimensions. When the life wave from a particular planet has ascended into its immortal perfection, the laggards of that civilization, left as mid-denizens of the deep, have continued to abide as unrestrained hordes upon the planets of their abode. Some have migrated hopefully through the power of spiritual transference to other planets, being embodied there with a view to raising them out of their recalcitrance. The story is old and oft repeated, for mankind's abuse of his free will has caused some the most frightful delusions, whereby, rather than enter into the love of God, they have gone in to a state of the downward spiral and have left their own life wave to pass through aeons, as it were, of reaching out and groping for the divinity they once had within their grasp. Do you know, precious ones, that the mankind of earth, who are in the outer state of consciousness, and do not have this knowledge vouchsafed unto them which ye have, there is not the same action and responsibility concerning the cosmic law. These do not rise so high, nor do they fall so low, for the pendulum swinging so far to the right of mankind's divinity places him in great peril if he forsake that divinity. The Master Jesus, in explaining this great law, did not reveal it to its fullness, but did touch upon it in his expression concerning the 7 devils that were cast out, and how that after they were cast out and the individual again entered into uncleanness, these 7 went out abroad seeking other companion spirits of like ilk, and drew them back by the magnetization of that individual's discord, and entered once again into the temple, and so the former state with that one was worse. The latter state was worse than the former state. Recognize then, beloved ones, possibilities in this statement. Realize it now, for I would tell you some things this day that shall bring to your attention the seriousness of your cosmic responsibility and the blessedness into which you can enter as you preserve the divine harmony within the matrix of your world. Now, certain individuals have had a great privilege in hearing our dictations and feeling the release of our energy, but other individuals have impeded the flow of our energy and have sat among you as sponges of discord. They have soaked up the ascended Master's radiance and turned it loose to feed their own egos and their own physical health and well-being without creating and sustaining the focus of cosmic harmony. Leeches they are, and discordant leeches in truth, for they have not recognized their own divine opportunity. If they were given an opportunity, there is always the possibility that they would criticize the very acts that resulted from their own unconsecrated energies and thoughts. These individuals, and there are some, beloved ones, that have sat among you who are directly responsible for the shortening of any number of ascended master dictations. And there is one specific individual who was responsible, according to Master Moriel, for causing in this place, on every occasion when they were present, And they emanated that feeling that the Master did defer to that one individual and did shorten his release and the complete intended energy and instruction, and deprived all because of the one. And yet the one would criticize the action of the light and know it not. Mankind think in their foolishness that they deal with human powers, whereas they deal with divine powers and diabolical powers that are within themselves. It is on these anchor points the sinister force does seize and use those individuals as tools to defeat the holy purposes of God. These have screened from the world the full quantity of spiritual energy which ought to have been released for the salvation of the planet. And they have not been worthy of the privilege that has been given unto them. And there is now pending before the Darjeeling Council a very serious charge and document which itself is being considered. When this is done, it may well be that we shall only permit a limited number in this city to have the privilege of hearing our dictations, and shall bar all others. I tell you, precious ones, you are not trampling with human laws. You are not trifling with human energies. And yet I would not chastise the many for the one, or the many for the few. And yet we must in some way preserve and guard the sacred quality of our releases, so that these opportunities of coming together do manifest the fully merited grace that is to be given to the whole world, and not only to those life streams who sit within the holy precincts of our aura and radiation. The purity and the honor and the integrity of the Darjeeling Council, their holy energy, their holy concepts, their radiance, the majestic light they have released through the classes held here quarterly, and the mighty grace of God which has gone forth is so great that we do not expect all to understand the fullness of that greatness. We do expect some gratitude, only that on the wings of that gratitude we may appeal to the karmic board to bless you more. When, however, individuals feel that their puny intellect and their puny feelings are of more import than the earth or than the governing body of this organization to whom we appear and manifest our instruction, then I think it is time for them to sever themselves from this activity and go elsewhere, for we do not desire to have them longer among us. They have had a privilege, high and holy, and have not recognized it. I say, let them go. There shall be gnashing of teeth and outer darkness. Let them enter that, for the law has given them mercy, and they have not acknowledged it. For the law has given them grace, and they have not walked in it. For the law has purified them from time to time, and they have not held that purity within themselves, and yet they would cast aspersions upon others whose shoes they are not worthy to tie. We shall go on. We shall cross over completely. We shall reach up unto the summit of the mountain and down upon the summit, and we shall pass them by completely, for in the belts below they shall remain trapped and snared in those nets which they have woven with their own discordant energies. They shall cry, and none shall hear them. They shall seek, and they shall not find. They shall knock, and it shall not be opened unto them, for the door shall be clean shut. And yet another era shall come, and again they shall appeal, and then they shall be heard. For the law is merciful indeed. But the law, with all of its long-suffering and attitudes of purity, does not intend to lower the standards of grace so that the world itself enters into a cup of suffering, when that suffering could be requited by the harmony of the faithful. In bygone times, a few years ago, mighty victory descended and gave a specific dictation to another organization, in which he charged them that if they who were there should keep the harmony, a tremendous cosmic action for all mankind would be brought forth. I shall not answer the question, but I shall ask it. Do you think that they did? Do you think that they could have? Do you think that you can? For I tell you today that at the very moment when the very greatest and most magnificent cosmic actions are about to be brought forth, at that specific moment, the raging lion goeth forth, and gnashing his teeth through human beings, attempts to destroy the beautiful work of God, begun so nobly at inner levels and released in fragments here below as a thing of beauty. Truly, in the words of the Christ, these few knew not what they did. Yet, we cannot mitigate the action of the laws. We cannot mitigate the action of the karmic lords. We cannot say they shall not have mercy. But we surely say the time has come when they must look to themselves, lest their crown not only be knocked from their head by the action of karma, but the fragments thereof pierce their feet, no matter which way they walk, so that the sacred jewels that were intended to adorn them become but stones upon which they walk, not knowing their value. We do not mince words this day, for it does not matter that they are not present. For our word goeth forth to the end of the world, and at inner levels will be heard by all. And so there is nothing done in secret that shall not be declared from the housetops. And those who speak in secret are heard, and there is no possibility of their escape, for the law cannot be broken. Yet there is another law, a higher law, that is our hope, and that is the law that brings freedom to you all. And it is in this law we would anchor you. It is in this law that we would establish you. For I would speak now, in closing, of the wonderful manifestations of the children of light all over the planet, who have consecrated their energies so lovingly to Master El Moria, who have offered themselves to beloved Jesus, who have censured not, but praised, and therefore expanded in holy praise the endeavors of all, so that in the strivings of the Summit Lighthouse activity to express the full perfection of deity, all who have recognized it have been blessed and have counted their blessings, and shall be given more in such abundance that their cup shall run over, and they shall be established in the holy mountain of God. And a river shall flow forth from their heart, and the stream crystal clear that shall flow from their heart shall be for the bathing, the washing, the regeneration, and the healing of all nations. For in them is only the thought of purity for all, and they express that mighty tide that, touching the ocean of God's own divinity, is one not only in sand and foam and white cap upon the waves, but in the holy air above and the fire deep down in the heart of the earth, in the bosom of the earth, where beats the heart that seeks in hope to expand the earth's opportunities. Remember then, blessed ones, as I close, that the world waits with hidden hungers to find its freedom, that Saint Germain has long served that all may live, that Saint Germain and Master Moria have given lovingly and unstintingly of their devotion, time on time again, that they have given forgiveness to those who have erred, that they have assisted the lame and the halt to find their way back to restored health and harmony and wholeness, that they have reconsecrated energies that had gone astray, that they have assisted in a limitless manner to assist mankind, and that they shall continue to do so. In these facts, pin your faith. Look above the mists and fogs and delusions of human consciousness to the snow-capped mountains of cosmic purity and see the salvation of God, the holy truth about every being, and realize that those whose wings are clipped must call upon the law of God as the prodigal son did of old, and thus they shall grow new ones and expand them until they too can fly, and so all shall come home. Those who love enough today, today, and those who love not enough today, when they have evoked, convoked, and invoked enough love to cut themselves free. I thank you and bid you good afternoon. I dip my hand as in a sacred pool, and draw forth the waters thereof, that I might sprinkle the nation with tranquillity's vibratory action. The seeds of unrest and turmoil planted by disturbing individuals and recalcitrant mankind are scattered abroad upon the land and upon the world, and the harvest of unrighteousness is perilous unto all mankind. Let those who feel that the hierarchy ought not to call attention unto mankind's generated discord take into cognizance the understanding of the deity, and realize that the Most High, in his great purity of concept, has dispensed to the hierarchy the necessary wisdom and understanding to cope with these outer conditions which are so much a part of the footstool kingdom of God. Let men understand the meaning of the footstool kingdom, for as it has been spoken of old, heaven is my throne, and earth is my footstool, saith the Lord of hosts. Here, where dwell all types of humanity, a lack of understanding at times permeating the thoughts and feelings of the people does generate old patterns and karmic ties, and create new bonds of iniquity, which must come before the lords of karma for adjustment. Let men of every faith understand then that there are no inexcusable acts, no inexcusable violence, no inexcusable self-generated peril. When the peace of the world trembles in the cup of mankind's consciousness, when the arrows in the quiver of the unrighteous cause the world to fear, let men turn to the fragrant peace of spiritual octaves of light and find succor and retreat therein. There is no outer peace until mankind achieve an inner tranquility and quietude within themselves. So long as the causes are generated from within the feeling and thinking of mankind's old and ancestral thirst for vengeance, it cannot be that turmoil shall cease, and yet the heart of heaven decrees it so. The ascended masters of light decree it so, and all who serve our cause seek and pursue it mightily. But it is not enough, for it cannot be fulfilled thusly. What one man doeth, another need not of necessity follow. And yet the world today, following the mongers of error and hate, and having no right use made of the mind God has given unto them through the false psychology of mob violence, have rendered much of our service inadequate to keep the peace of the world. We are not able in this octave to violate the law of mankind's free will, and their madness, when it goeth untempered by reason, shall bring about a frightful penalty if mankind shall not awaken, and en masse let all pursue the way of peace. Now there are those, even so-called spiritual brethren, who would take advantage of every opportunity where turmoil is generated in the world to cast abroad and scatter seeds of fear and distrust. There are many men who, in their ignorant state, do not hesitate to utilize each such opportunity and turn it to their own profit. These also are children of pestilence, and as much a partaker of the banalities which the error-mongers create as they themselves, though they esteem themselves to be children of light. Let all recognize then the need for an intense cosmic purity, which can only be manifest, blessed ones, when application is made within yourself to your own God presence, who, lifted up in a perpetual state of cosmic exaltation, is able at each moment to bestow upon you below as above the fullness of his radiant face of peace. As the sun shines forth in mighty splendor, so the consecration of the righteous does penetrate the very gates of heaven, and beareth all there in the armor of righteousness to see and behold the face of God and the eternal presence, who remains unaffrighted or undisturbed by the calamities which befall mankind in their lesser states of consciousness. Yet we are asked in this day to shew forth the fiber and strength of the hierarchy on behalf of mankind. We are asked to interfere. We are asked to bring the pressures of heaven to bear upon outer turmoil. But we recall the ancient days now long past, when men asked for the gift of free will, declaring that only thus would they be able to rank with the gods and show forth the manifest perfection which the Godhead did bestow upon the elect. Many came and were given the gift of free will, and there was trepidation even in heaven concerning some of these as to whether or not they would rightly employ it. And it came to pass that they did not, for the old momentums which they knew in past eras came once again to them for redemption, and they stood face to face with the dweller upon the threshold of their own being, and he was not consumed, but he emerged with all of his own bestial trappings to cause the world around to be a jungle where the dissonance and the cries of anguish could be heard. The perils that faced the elect faced also those lesser beings responsible. And in the midst of all, the elect sought to uphold their own equilibrium, assisting mankind in all of their discord and troubles, while seeking to find their own way back to freedom's bastions. As we recall struggles which are not known to you in the outer, as we recall now conditions of which you are not appraised as yet, as we see the graphs of the future outlined and predicated by the actions of mankind today, and as we take into cognizance the drawings and tracings upon the screen of life from past civilizations, we solemnly warn mankind that if they shall continue to pursue the pathway of unrighteousness and ignorance, that ignorance which does ignore the gift of life and takes into account but the narrow provincialism of their own thoughts and feelings, I assure you that they shall reap a frightful harvest indeed, and the cup of woe shall flow across the world as to the brink of utter destruction. It cannot be otherwise in the footstool kingdom, for mankind have asked and been granted the right of free will. I know full well that one individual cannot always sustain the balance for another, and yet we ask you to try. We ask you to try for the sake of the hierarchy and their noble efforts. We ask you to try for the sake of your beloved Saint Germain. We ask you to try for the sake of the angelic host who have tirelessly served the cause of life's perfection. We ask you to try for the sake of beloved Immaculata, who has for so long held the God design in all of its magnificent expression for you. We ask you to try for yourself and the sweet fabric of your soul, loomed by heaven's own immortal ones, who see in each strand the eternal Father-Mother love of the God plan made manifest. We ask you to hold supreme confidence in the ultimate victory of the holy cause, but we say to you, and presage our advice with faith in the ultimate outcome, that unless mankind shall awaken from the vampire-like sleep in which they presently exist, paying allegiance to a multitude of lesser gods than themselves, who by reason of their negatively spiritual qualities in high places do tear man down into the degenerative cycle, I cannot promise the world the freedom which God has in store for this generation. And I fear lest the torch be passed to another generation to achieve that which this one shall fail to outpicture. I say this not in a lack of confidence in either the hierarchy or those blessed godly individuals who have for so long sustained a cosmic action and anchor point here for us, but I say it because of the intense shadow darkness which almost overcomes the world today. There is beauty enough in many places in nature. There is beauty enough in many places in spiritual aspirations. There is beauty enough in the glow ray of immortality beamed to the earth. But the desecration which mankind have practiced with these holy energies is so frightening as to almost be unparalleled in universal manifestation. When of old a certain planet was destroyed and blasted into space, its very fragments scattering themselves throughout large areas of solar systems, the discord that existed there was not as great as presently now is manifest upon the earth. And yet greater mercy overhangs mankind, and therefore, by this balance of mercy, the earth has been permitted her existence, and yet the atrocities practiced against mankind, mankind's inhumanity to man, is this day even greater than it was yesterday. And we look to see an action to stop that from your octave. For unless it come from you, blessed one, in a greater measure of devotion than ever in the past, it cannot balance the mounting crescendo of mankind's clamor for more vice and less virtue. I remind you of the words spoken before the flood. And the imagination of man's heart was continually to do evil. Do you see, beloved ones, how by vain imagination mankind are able to generate new concepts of atrocities? I recall how the keeper of the record himself did cringe in agony and beg to be relieved of his responsibility when he beheld the record of the ancient Chinese torture chambers. And this was an ascended being. If a tear and a smile could bring mankind their freedom, I should give them both this day. But I come with a very straight face to bring to your attention that the narrow and straight way of utter devotion to God is the only sole salvation of the earth and its people, and this must be done with the self-same dedication that the masters had prior to their ascension. It is not enough for mankind to dabble in spiritual matters while their lives are lived in shame. Vultures they are when they take the treasures of God and do expend them upon their own vanity. The sheer neglect that has been practiced by the so-called Christian and Buddhic world, and I say shame upon both of them in this aspect, is one of disregard to the very holy tenets for which mankind ascended did give their all. Now I do not speak to bring a weight and cloud of further condemnation upon mankind, even though my words might seem to be themselves a pall of criticism. I speak to bring the light of truth to the world ere it crumble over the brink of destruction and find itself unable to cope with the frightful conditions which will be brought about unless there is a stopping of the action of human discord and filth. The degradation of the world is no part of its reality. All of these outer conditions are no part of the divine reality. And when I think of peace, it is when these conditions have ceased. It is when the banner of Shambhala waves over every individual's life. And when the banner of peace is established in the thought and feeling of mankind, then do we know that hierarchy shall be established the world around. Now let me in closing bring to your attention the Brotherhood in White. How thoughtless mankind are concerning these holy ones. How little these holy ones are truly known even by the students of light of long standing. Do you think, precious ones, that our thoughts and feelings are akin to mankind's? Do you think we seek the vanity of your adoration from the outer standpoint? I tell you, nay. We seek your forthright adoration of the holy principles for which we stood. Mankind throughout the earth too frequently seek friendship with the ascended hierarchy for the sake of personal protection, for the sake of personal direction, for the sake of a mere personal friendship. Our desire, then, is to call to your attention that if the pure divine friendship be sought for the conveyance of the sacred mystery that shall make you as we are, then and only then will you have fulfilled the reason for contact with us. And I shall assert truth, holy truth, this day, though the world were to crumble because of it. For I know that holy truth is the only sacred and permanent cement which shall cohesively unite all of mankind's elements, and shall bind together even the fractures that exist in mankind's world, until we can see the body of God as one substance, immortalized within each individual and in the body politic of the whole earth. O angels of cosmic peace, thy radiance brings to all release from vanity and discontent, until thy grace, perfection meant, is known by all and loved with all, and shadows dissolved. Human creation all, and God is seen as raiment white, adorning all with heaven's light. I am thy peace, thy God control, thy victory, O living soul. Come then and feel the wisdom flame released by God's own I am name, that shall enfold the substance rare, the blossoms of God's own love so fair, and cleanse the earth by purity, and flood each soul till all shall be ascended and forever free. I thank you and bid you good afternoon.
All things come home at eventide, like birds that weary of their roaming, and I would hasten to thy side, homing. O dearest, I have wandered far, from daybreak to the twilight gloaming. I come back with the evening star, homing. Thou art my hunger and my need, the goal and solace of my roaming. Be thou my haven when I speed, homing. All things come home at eventide, like birds that weary of their roaming, and I would hasten to thy side,
Draw nigh unto me, and I will draw nigh unto you, uttered of old, precious ones, is effective to this hour in drawing the very substance of the purified nature into outer manifestation until the eternal presence of God from higher octaves shines through your hands and feet as though pierced by shafts of light, until you epitomize the Son of God in his starry radiance, manifesting here for those who have eyes to see and ears to hear the fullness of the inviolate Word. O precious ones, as I come to you today with the ancient records before me, I am aware of the gross injustices practiced by mankind upon this planet for centuries and millenniums, and it is therefore my desire in the holy name of Saint Germain, the God of freedom for this earth, to see that the world is free, no more to be a part to this form of bondage, but to manifest the fullness of that beauteous and wondrous freedom in the light which God intends for every man. I speak now then of the banal habit of stereotyping which is engaged in by mankind. For mankind, in their outer action thereof, do select a certain niche into which they desire their friends and acquaintances to fall. By this process, they cause them to be classified with a certain mortal concept, and this concept is most productive of bringing about a negative manifestation during those moments when the aspiring one would find their freedom from all human fetters and be able to manifest the fullness of Christ's expression upon earth. I therefore bring this banal habit to the attention of the students, that it may be cast off as an old and outworn garment which never had any usefulness and never produced any virtuous action. It is a part of Puritanism which is not pure. It is a part of mankind's action which has brought about much discontent by the practitioner as well as the recipient of the vibratory action released from the thought and feeling of that individual. Most precious ones, then, when you consider for this hour the great need to cast into the violet fire of unwanted substance, I urge in the name of God that you cast aside this banal habit and replace it by a spiritual method of garbing all mankind in the radiance of their divine perfection, so that you may assist them in establishing that perfection in their world, rather than in abiding in the mortal concepts which they have lingered in far too long. Precious ones of the light, the most simple ideas are often productive of great freedom when individuals in all of their thinking do not perceive the action of simple concepts in holding them in bondage. It is necessary that we call it periodically to their attention so that they may have their freedom and know the perfection which the ascended masters intend in this day and age to release for the freeing of mankind. Now the Holy Spirit, in its wondrous outpouring of love, majesty, and celestial light, does ever bring about an action which produces cosmic fruit, so that those who have received the fullness of that magnificent cosmic fire will in their outer world express some at least fragmentary manifestation of that which is within them. When you find an individual who is expressing no quality of light whatsoever, that is, no quality of light that is apparent to your vision, you ought to then call to the divine presence, first of all, of yourselves, and then to the divine presence of that one, for a release of a succoring light from heaven, lest there be snuffed out in that individual the very light which God gave him. You see, precious ones, mankind do not know the import of their own contacts with other parts of life. Ever so often, one single individual is a catalyst for another person, whereby they are able to give them some form of assistance which could not be released in any other fashion whatsoever. And the difference in the release of that substance and the withholding of that substance is that an individual may pass through an entire embodiment without scarcely an inch of progress, whereas if they receive the fullness of the divine call made by some individual of light for them, they would be given an impetus that would push them forward into their own soul's progress and God design. Do you see how important then it is that you neither withhold from mankind the right action of your own cosmic expression, or that you ought not to release those human stereotypes into your conscious mind, whereby you classify mankind as a gossip, for example, or as you classify them as an ignorant person, or if you classify them as an unspiritual person, or perhaps a libertine. Therefore, you see, blessed ones, when you form in your consciousness an idea about another, whether it is founded in fact or not, does not make one particle of difference, for you are entering into the vibratory action of human discord and negation and projecting that idea in all of its human ferocity to that individual to cause them grief and despair when they try to find their immortal freedom. Therefore, it is utterly important that mankind shall abandon this excessive habit of human reasoning, whereby they impute to mankind a former state of action which at the present hour may have been overcome. Do you see, precious ones, that when you fix in consciousness an idea about another, and that individual has already cast aside that action, you are then regenerating, and I do not think that is even the proper term, you are recreating, which I prefer, in them an action of human discord, which has been abandoned by them, and you are also solely responsible then for the reestablishment of that action which they had clean overcome. I call this to your attention, for there are many individuals presently in embodiment who would also have made their own ascension in the light if they had not cast so many stones of stumbling in their brother's pathway by this very foolish action of projecting a thought about another individual into the ethers and causing that thought to reach that individual, perhaps with a view to correcting them from some form of human action which they had already overcome, as I previously pointed out. Now, if you stop to consider the many erstwhile ramifications of this action, you will realize how important it is that mankind set about to reverse it by the very opposite polarity of producing a conceptual relationship of every individual with his own God presence. You see, precious ones, when you meet an individual for the first time, it is a very real opportunity to give to them that wonderful spark of cosmic exuberance which mankind find in any renewal of an old acquaintanceship or any form of first contact. For individuals, when they first meet and are not yet obsessed with human concepts about one another, are able to behold either the virtue in the other or the vice. Now, when they behold the virtue in another person, they expand those qualities, and when they hold in consciousness the opposite, there is a repelling action, whereby they often make the remark afterward, "I could not stand that individual." I tell you, beloved ones, if you consider all mankind as the handiwork of God, you must recognize that this is a form of blasphemy against the immortal presence of life, and ought to be discarded now and forever. But I call to your attention that mankind, when they are in the radiation of the ascended masters and are receiving dictations in this fashion, do infuse themselves with a consciousness of light and light's perfection, and a resolve is crystallized in their idea world, whereby they say, "I will certainly do this," or "I will certainly do that," and "I will never again do this," or "I will never again do that." Then, as time passes, and the idea seems to evaporate from the screen of consciousness, we find them once again engaged in the same practices, so that it is utterly necessary for us to repeat our admonishments to mankind in order to give them some form of assistance from our level that will specifically get at the cause of the problem that is hindering them from making spiritual progress at this very hour. Now, precious ones, if you were granted an interview with me in Ceylon and were brought before me, I would give you the self-same instruction which I am giving you this morning, and I therefore urge you to recognize that that which is the requirement of your life stream is that substance which we release at any specific time. I well recall on numerous occasions when various individuals have been privileged, as we might say, to hear us manifest our own instruction to them, that they have often been somewhat disappointed that we did not tear aside the veil from the universe itself and give them some glimpses of specific octaves of light in other worlds, which we have done on numerous occasions, and they feel sometimes that it is a great disappointment to them that we do not in some way bring to them more glamorous aspects of their being than to refer to the wrong and negative actions which they have performed. But I ask you, precious ones, that you enter in now in my consciousness into the concepts which I hold and the reasons why I perform this action, that you may understand that mankind, even the very best of mankind, seem prone at times to fall back into the self-same old habits of human thought and feeling from which they have clean escaped. And therefore it is periodically necessary for us, standing in the person of the Guru and the spiritual teacher, to call to their attention those specific negative momentums which are causing them, as it were, to slide backward farther and farther from the goals which they have set before themselves. This, then, is a cosmic action of necessity, not born of our desire to impart greater light to mankind, but born of our desire to see mankind sustain the action that is right in their world, and then further expand that action until they once again enter into a position of cosmic progress. When individuals are bound, whether they have spiritual knowledge or not, by some form of human momentum which they have established in the past, it is ever so necessary that they shall shatter that momentum and reestablish the correct patterns ere they can move forward in the areas of cosmic progress which we so long to see happen. Precious ones of the light, a most momentous decision is now being made in the retreats of the Great White Brotherhood, the planet round, to bring greater and greater service to you in this day and age. But there are many factors that are being carefully weighed. One among them, of course, is our release of our worded instruction in this manner, so that you are able to have the vibratory action of the ascended masters pulsating in the ethers of the very room in which you sit. Another has to do with the recording of such dictations upon electronic processing tape. Another has to do with the release of those words in printed form for mankind's casual perusal and study, that they may find greater assistance through a carefully executed study of our words. Well, beloved ones, if you knew all the factors that are now being weighed before us, you would recognize how utterly important it is that you shall pay attention to and appreciate the opportunities which you have to receive our words by all three of these methods. For I tell you that it is not necessary that we shall do this unless you appreciate it to a fullest extent of the law. For we can at any time, if we wish, withdraw this method of releasing our substance, and it will then become exceedingly difficult for mankind to find the tremendous assistance which they presently sometimes spurn or do not recognize for all of its values. I tell you, precious ones, you do not realize when you sometimes take a negative action that you are striking a spear of negation directly into ascended master projects. Do you think for one moment, precious ones, that these actions are the result of any individual upon this planet? For example, do you think the beloved one through whom I am speaking is responsible for all of the cosmic actions which we have taken, for all of the release of our energy, for the formation of the structure of this organization, and for the establishment of the light by the angelic hosts? I hardly think that you do. Yet, precious ones, when any individual, by reason of separation, does not appear at these services at a time when we are releasing this tremendous energy, but seems too busy to come here, or engages themselves in other operations which are of far less value to their soul, it is they who are themselves cutting themselves off from the very opportunity which we have offered and which we have made available. I tell you, blessed ones, if we are able to study and to prepare, if we are able to manifest our light, if we are able to bring forth our love to you in the vibratory action of these releases, then I certainly think that those who have life and limb and health and happiness ought to also be most delighted that they could come at every opportunity that the great law would permit and receive this blessed assistance. When mankind do not take advantage of opportunity, they little realize what it means to them from a karmic standpoint. I tell you, precious ones, that we have sustained this action here for the few, whereas the many could be the recipients of much benefit. Now, it is not my intention to continually press forward, as it were, and to make any form of appeal for and on behalf of mankind, even for and on behalf of ourselves, but I am making this appeal strictly for each one of you individually and for all those who are, shall we say, guilty of not responding to the precious opportunity they could have. Do you see, precious ones? My words are released for them, and I therefore direct the angels of record to see that this day there stands in the aura of each one of them, wherever they may be upon the planetary body, an angel of record to report to their finer vehicles the fullness of my thought as well as my heart's love, that they may understand in this day and age that the Lord Maha Chohan has personally intervened for and on behalf of each of them, that they may recognize that this is the extent to which heaven itself will bow to the great God flame within. And yet, as beloved Jesus and beloved Sanat Kumara told you during the Easter season in dictations released here, the Lord shall not always strive with flesh. Therefore I say to you, this also shall in due time apply even to those students of light who do not take the activity seriously and do not recognize the need to keep themselves pure from all forms of human discord and imperfection. I tell you, precious ones, that if you were to realize what you could accomplish by a spirit of cosmic harmony, you would so completely dissolve the petty problems which sometimes beset you that you would no longer be plagued by them ever again. A cosmic action could be produced in response to your calls, whereby the fullness of the light would always manifest to clean up and mop up these conditions before they even had a beginning in your world. Now then, I have released to you two valuable pieces of instruction, one concerning the stereotyping of individuals, and the other concerning attendance and non-attendance at our releases. I think that I shall rest this case before the judgment bar of Almighty God and before the karmic board. I think that I shall also rest this case before the judgment seat of your hearts, and I shall pray that the cosmic quality of cosmic mercy infused from on high shall so saturate you with mercy that you shall not only give mercy to all mankind, including those brethren bereft of your comfort and presence at this hour, but that you will also give mercy unto yourself, that you may purify yourselves in the light from your own heart and from the heart of the risen Christ, until there is no longer any need for us to release such admonishments to you, but rather we can go on to more delightful subjects in an orderly fashion and progression, whereby the cosmic light itself will shine forth as I begun with, in such a fashion and manner as through beloved Jesus. And you shall feel the radiance pulsating in your hands and feet. You shall feel the quivering radiance pulsating from your eyes. You shall feel the very roots of your hair saturated with the tingling love of God in all of its resounding joy that not only echoes throughout the force field of your physical form and substance, but throughout the entire universal canopy of illumination. And all then should rejoice, and all then shall rejoice, if not below, then as above. For I have come to bring you comfort's dove, and shed such light as has not before been seen upon the world, that has not yet been all that which God is and would make manifest here. Ladies and gentlemen, in the name of your unfolding divinity, in the name of cosmic victory for the earth, I take my leave of you this afternoon in full consecration to the beauty that shall yet come into full manifestation. I thank you and bid you good afternoon.
presence, all great powers unite. To now give earth's children victory in the light. In thy love, Hilarion, enfold all our youth. Ever hold these dear ones in thy flame of truth. Bear the hope of God's new day, make them firm and strong. To uphold God's gift of freedom, praise His name in song. Patiently and in thy great wisdom, help us now to unveil this one truth eternal, God's light cannot fail. Master dear Hilarion, in thy name we stand. Help to the agnostics, skeptics now befriend. Atheists who need thy love, let thy flame expand in the hearts of all our people, till each one shall stand. Ever God's divine plan revealing, here naught else can abide. When God's truth and freedom rule earth side by side.
Precious ones, that masterful release of light substance that comes from the illumined mind is ever a crystal flowing stream connected directly with the heart of the deity and bringing to all that perception which I am sure will ultimately result in such redirection of the being and mind of man as shall generate in all recipients thereof those saintly qualities which are admired by every cosmic being, every angel, and by God Himself. Mortal concepts, in their state of confusion, frequently cause mankind much regret. But all that which comes forth from on high brings a renewing of the mind of man, whereby he becomes consecrated afresh to the holiness of God. And this is the requirement of every moment. For it is indeed difficult for man to kick against the pricks of Christ's illumination as the mighty Word, descending from on high, releases its substance into the mental and feeling world of mankind. It is in absolute contradistinction to those mortal concepts which do not bring freedom to the recipient thereof. And yet the diet of mankind is so concerned with the outer release that it is difficult indeed for the inner communication of the heart to make its mark upon the screen of individual life expression. You, precious ones, are not an ordinary people when you embark upon a spiritual adventure which is intended to take you afar from mortal shores and to bring you into those cosmic experiences which will give you your freedom. Now, when I was embodied as Paul long ago, it came to pass that I suffered shipwreck, and I know the havoc that can be wrought by the rebellion of the waves and the wind. But I assure you that the great calming influence of the mind of God is able to assert its dominion over all outer conditions until that which is imperfect will drop into the fire, and the viper of human creation will be no more. I call to your attention that now, as in all past times, contemporary man is so preoccupied with the business of living that little time is actually given for contemplation of the mighty tides of life, the regenerative forces of the Spirit, and the exaltation of the deity into his rightful place and authority. Outer conditions so frequently bring about distress, and yet they are as the wind. They come and they go. There is a rise and fall of their very dominion in the consciousness of men. For at times individuals are so secure within the bastions of their heavenly consciousness, through prayer, through communion, through an outpouring of love to the deity, that they are scarcely aware of that which is directed against them. Then comes the unguarded moment when an individual, opening themselves up to a sinister outer activity, permit the infiltration of that wrong action into their mind as an annoyance, as a thorn in the flesh, as a peculiar human quality, a quirk of mortal consciousness, which seems to them momentarily to hold accuracy. And yet it is not truth, nor is it destined to play any part in their emancipation from outer world conditions and the turmoil that seeks to wreak havoc with the mighty plans of God. Blessed ones, you know full well that the measure of heaven's purity will not brook interference from mankind's consciousness in so far as the celestial Edenic concepts of God go. But it is in the vulnerable part of man, the mind, that the Eve of man, depicted in the allegorical and symbolical outpicturing of Adam in the garden, does yield to the carnal mind and the ministrations of mortal thought until individuals become deceived, as it were, by the serpentine force flowing in the wrong direction to cause mankind to turn their attention upon generations, whereas it ought to be turned upon regenerative activities. Now, precious ones, Kuan Yin, the goddess of mercy, comes with me this morning as I speak to you to radiate out her mighty power of mercy upon the earth. For mercy is the requirement of this hour. Mankind, in all of their vacillations and all of the turmoil of mortal creation, the turning of their attention to the outer, have not, as Saint Germain has told you, often found their freedom or release from pain and insecurity. But by turning within unto the consciousness of the great God flame that beats and sustains your heart, you are able to feel the ancient covenant revivified within you hourly and momentarily as well, until there is an upsurge and an upsweep of your spirits, a cosmic elevation to a place that gives you some measure of God's security in your own outer consciousness. At that moment, you rejoice and you are happy, and there comes to you a feeling of unity and oneness with all life. And then again some outer condition speaks to the carnal mind. The serpentine force enters in. The naivete of mankind in feeling that outer conditions have power. And so you vacillate. You rise and fall as a barometer of consciousness. One moment you are exalted into cosmic heights, and then again debased into the despair of mankind's own feelings of depreciation for himself. Precious ones, you are the handiwork of God, and yet, in a sense, you are the handiwork of God in you. The handiwork of God in the mighty macrocosmic worlds has established a mighty framework of cosmic law. These laws of themselves form the skeletal structure of all things that are. And yet within the miniature microcosm of the self, the God within you attempts to work out, with that fear and trembling which borders on humility before the great macrocosmic world, the wonderful destiny that is your individual forte of victory. But precious ones, you must understand that the God that worketh within you must be given dominion, must be given the power and the glory in your own world, so that the victory of life then is the victory of your God presence. When the outer self attempts to assert itself and to maintain that it is in command, mankind do indeed vacillate, for unless the outer self holds the hand of the God presence of each individual, there is no possibility of victory. For victory comes from on high and not below. The oil for the lamp of being, which you ought to especially husband and hold close, is poured upon the rocky altar of your hearts in order to soften them for the wondrous inflow of the Holy Spirit. And this is almost a literal manifestation. For I think many of you are aware that the very physical form of mankind, scientifically speaking, does calcinate, so much so that you say this individual or that individual has a hardening of the arteries, of the brain, or of some other part of the body. Well, precious ones, is there not a need then for flexibility in the consciousness, when the consciousness of man reeks not with spiritual staunchness, but with a hardness of heart that cannot have compassion for other parts of life? Do you not think that this outpictures in the very physical body of man as a great rigidity which refuses to permit the outflow and outpicturing of the divine essence of the flame? The flames of God in all their tangible offerings to mankind must find a receptive chalice, and that chalice itself must permit a permeation of the immortal substance of the flame into the very pores thereof, that that essence be cherished by all parts of the being, as above, so below. It is a point of great scientific accuracy that when mankind do dedicate themselves wholly to God, that there is a greater manifestation of the divine flames in action within the force field of man's own being. It is also true that through the years, in order to give an eye picture of the various flames in action, some individuals have caused to be constructed mechanical flames that the eye can see, so as to give a perfect or a more perfect or relative picture of the wonderful flames of God in their so-called invisible state. This then is designed to bring it into the realm of visibility, so that the mind can grasp the eye picture that it is to hold, and then to manifest that thought in consciousness until the very essence of the pure flame itself vibrates in all its wondrous raising action through the physical form, through the mind, through the consciousness, through the memory, and throughout the entire man. Now I realize full well that my words may not at first be recognized by all of you, but I cannot, because of the various states and differences of mankind's consciousness, design my entire dissertation for the sake of any one individual. I would not slant it to the lowest in evolved consciousness, and neither would I raise it to the highest, but I must strike a media state whereby I release a mainstream of cosmic and scientific knowledge, and then do also touch those areas of consciousness which you all must indulge me in if I would accomplish that which is my plan, which therefore will bring forth in the less evolved a certain specific benefit. And then again I must reach up to greater heights where I touch upon those scientific accuracies which will raise the more evolved into a higher state of consciousness. In your patience you must all learn to possess your souls with one another, showing forth understanding also with the ascended masters when they bring forth the various required releases. The wondrous manifestations of these releases is designed for the freedom of mankind and the earth, most specifically, of course, directed to those students and chelas of this activity who are recipients of these releases, either in printed or worded form or in a manner of electronic processing. But I tell you, precious ones, that the most important release of all is the spiritual substance which we release into the very atmosphere, which you may absorb in your finer bodies and even in your physical forms, if you will, until you receive a charge as a capacitor or condenser of our cosmic energies, which are designed to assist you in the outworking of the grand and magnificent concepts of God within your own individual lives. Now, it is ever so important that the entire scheme of the hierarchy be realized by the more advanced from among the chelas. It is necessary that you understand that the hierarchy are working with you, and that you be conscious of their wondrous manifestations at various times of the day, when you may seem to be thinking specifically about nothing more than gratitude toward God. That you recognize that on this wave of gratitude, the ascended masters, whose consciousness is one with God, do vibrate into your worlds the very essence of their divine feeling and intelligence. As this intelligence is released into your world as you go about your daily tasks, it comes to pass that you yourself are connected with the great fountainhead of ascended master love, which is the focus of the various retreats throughout the earth. It is not necessary that you geographically fix these locations in your consciousness, for when you yourself are listening to a broadcast over the airwaves or by the media of your television, you do not necessarily find that you must concentrate upon the location of the tower or the studio, but you are able to absorb that which comes forth into your world because you find it acceptable to you. This, of course, is the standard men ought to hold for the receipt of all programs released to them. If they cannot accept in consciousness that which is being released, why should they mingle its substance with their world? But I tell you, precious ones, you of course must first listen in order that you might discern that which is being released. And now, with reference to ascended master love as it is released to you, it is not necessary that you concentrate then upon the specific area of the world from whence it cometh forth. For example, let us take now the Grand Teton Ranges. I am certain that those of you who physically are aware of the Grand Teton Ranges are able to appreciate the mighty release of Lanto's love beamed from that part of the world. And yet, before you ever had the opportunity of physically gazing upon them, you were the recipients of that love Therefore, you see, it was not absolutely necessary for you to see them in order to appreciate the great power of light that is released therefrom. However, I shall not decry the visitation of these areas by any of the chelas who desire to do so, for I am certain that by proximity to the mighty places where the focuses of light have been drawn, a tremendous concentration of cosmic energy can be brought forth into the etheric and physical part of mankind as well. However, we do not wish the students to feel that it is necessary for them to physically journey throughout the world and visit each retreat personally. While this might be desirable in some cases, it is not essential. For those of you who will make application in humility to the heart of deity will find that with God all things are possible, and upon the magic carpet of your internal being you may journey there to sit at the feet of the Master in perfect compassion and grace, receiving his beautiful radiation and vibratory action, which in itself is wondrous to purify and set your worlds aright, so that you may feel and continue to feel day after day the mighty release of light into your worlds, which will weld together the body of God upon this planet until the one substance is truly the one in vibratory action. So long as individuals are vibrating in a lesser state of consciousness, you see the entire universe itself, which is also a part of them, as they are a part of it, is not raised to the full transcendent destiny, which is thereby possible when all shall finally outpicture the wonders of their manifestation. Can you wonder then, precious ones, of the great necessity that from the beginning God should only conceive of the highest gifts for his children, knowing the great law of being, that when being rushes forth into manifestation, that being as a part of God descends into form and substance to partake in the human consciousness of that which is certainly not the purity of the higher octaves, and therefore in one sense, as it were, to pull down the consciousness of the universe itself into that denser sphere. Do you realize then why it is that all life on high desires to set the world free, that the whole world and the universe may enter into those higher cosmic vibrations which are the ascended Master's own bread of heaven? The angelic substance come down also into the Master's consciousness from the Most High into their own vibratory world. You see, precious ones, all of us in the ascended Master's octave gaze up to untrammeled heights that are even above form and substance and above the ascended Master consciousness from the level of individualization. I refer here to the individualization of ascended Master consciousness. For in the higher sense we are all one and able to reach unto the untrammeled heights of God. But in the manifestation of our individuality, we also have passed through a series of experiences which make us individuals as well as yourselves. However, the aspect of individuality ought to be merged, as we do, completely with the great God flame. And therefore we relinquish oftentimes any human thought or desire in order that we may absorb more of the radiation of the future, the great progress of God, as the entire cycles of infinity move ever upward into the great unfailing justice and joy that is the joy of God, not only in reflected substance, but in the pure substance of his being. It is to this that all should aspire, for here in mortal form and substance there is only a reflection of God as in a mirror, and this is that which is in a state of becoming, moving from a relative state of imperfection or even perfection to a state of higher perfection and release from all imperfection. This is in line with progressive improvement of the very nature of man, and we therefore rejoice in the great scientific accuracy that gives to everyone who will accept it the keys to their own individual immortality and freedom. We cannot hold the universe responsible for man's misuse of his opportunities, and I am sure that you yourself will recognize that the opportunities that are before you today are indeed great, but you will also recognize in retrospect, if you will pause for a moment and gaze backward, that you have not always taken full advantage of all the opportunities that came to you in the past, and you have many times lamented the fact that you did not do so. Will you not then with me now take advantage of this present opportunity to receive the keys to unfolding immortality? Will you not now accept that which you did not previously accept and utilize to its fullest? Will you realize that all spiritual science, all divine accuracy is for naught unless individuals themselves will use the wonderful gifts and graces which God has bestowed upon them? Lamentations concerning the state of the world or the individual's own state do not produce freedom. But when the keys of ascended master love are exercised by the power of spirituality functioning through the screen of the mind, flooding the unguents and oil of divine illumination through the very pores of mankind's being, flushing out all that which is discordant substance, that it may be consumed in the flame, mankind becomes the very epitome of ascended master love and perfection which he is intended to be. You are intended to be, as it were, the banks of a mighty river. Through you it is intended there shall flow a mighty tide of light that shall cause the whole world to be washed with a stream of pure vibration, the vibration of God's love from his own heart. Through you, the very banks of this stream are intended to expand until the river itself, by its mighty inflow, washes away all the silt and the refuse of mankind into the purifying fires. And I tell you, precious ones, the moving current of the air over the waters and river of being is significant of the power of the Holy Spirit, and the water itself is significant of the washing and regeneration of man, the continual process of purification. And the earthen channel is significant of that necessary form which must contain the flowing power of the Spirit. And the fire, precious ones, that consumes is the very life of God, which was in one sense shed for you. The very life of God, the mighty fire of God, which itself will purify the entire universe until all shall be made as white as wool and clean before God. And then the white linen, the clean, pure garments of the ascended ones can safely be given to you. For the guard before the tree of life can be safely removed, and you can be given the keys of immortality forever, for your hearts will be washed in the purifying blood of the fire essence. This is a symbolical release which your own souls may decipher comfortably at will. And I tell you, when it is understood, it gives to you the keys that will enable you to return to the Garden of Eden within your own being and find there the necessary substance whereby you can fashion a key to the very gate of this city beautiful. And you will also find that the sword of the angel who keeps this gate will not be pointed so as to repel you, but will be pointed upward so as to direct you. And you will pass through this gate, and you will eat of the fruit of the tree of life and live forever in the consciousness of God. This is your immortal destiny, but it is higher than mankind in their outer world can ever scarce realize. However, speaking now in a spiritually scientific manner, I say to you that this gift lies within your own hand at this hour. Will you take advantage of it, or will it be wasted as many other opportunities have been? It is up to your free will, precious ones, and the free will of all mankind. But as you gaze upon the world today, and with the eye of correct and accurate discernment, can you deny that they too have wasted many opportunities? And yet they have also availed themselves of some, and so progress has been builded in the cycles of evolution, both material and spiritual. I draw now to a close, but I shall not forget those of you who desire to remember God always. The word went forth long ago, remember thy Creator in the days of thy youth, when thy strength fails not. And so I say to you, while you are here and draw breath and have substance and consciousness, this is the day of opportunity. It is the day God hath made for the unfoldment of his love within the recesses of thy being. You cannot realize for another, nor can another realize for thee, but all of you can realize for yourself, and your portion can increase from day to day until it waxeth hot in a divine fervor for God, even as have the saints of old, and as I do. I thank you for your attention, and I remind you that that which I have given this day is a necessary release for mankind. I hope on another occasion to unfold before your consciousness some mighty wonders of the spiritual octaves that have not hitherto been revealed. But this today is food for the souls of men. I thank you again for your attention in the name of the risen Christ and in the name of the ascended Master Consciousness. Good afternoon.